Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the External and Community Affairs Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order on Monday, July 11th, 2022 at 5:06 p.m. So we're just going to start off with our territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the SFSS is located on the traditional, unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katzie nations. Unceded means that these territories have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and we are currently situated on occupied lands. I also just want to point out that when we do these territorial acknowledgements, it's not just to say them and then go on with our day, but also to always ground the work that we do, centering Indigenous rights and the work that Indigenous people do. When we do our roll call of attendance, I encourage folks to look up where they are calling in from. So on to section 3, roll call of attendance. On to 3.1. Let's start our roll call. So I'll start it off with myself, VP External and Community Affairs being the chair. Hi, my name is Ishana Baran. My pronouns are she, her, and all my access needs are met. And then next, history counselor.
Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Breed. My pronouns are he, his. I'm calling in from the stolen and unceded lands of the Katzie, Stolo, Semiahmoo, and the Portland First Nations. My access needs, I'm currently on the bus right now, so I'm going to be keeping my camera off. I'm going to be muting myself, and I'll be trying to engage more with the chat if I can. But aside from that, that's all my access needs.
Perfect, thank you. Indigenous Studies Student Union Counselor.
I'm not sure if this is true for anybody else, but Matt came in very fuzzy for me. So if there's something really important that you wanted to share, Matt, if you could drop it in the chat instead until you're done being on the bus, that'd be fantastic. My name is Anita. I'm also using the name Nebula, and I use they, them pronouns. I'm on the stolen lands of the Homothquim, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, and my access needs are currently met. Thank you.
Perfect. At-large members. Now we're going to start with our at-large members. Minahil.
Hi everyone, my name is Nahil. I'm seated on the traditional lands of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Matsuri, and the Semiahmoo First Nations.
Perfect. And then the next at-large member is Alexandra. They will be joining in around 30 minutes late today. But yeah, we'll just wait on to that. And next we're going to go on to section 3.2, our society staff. And we're going to go on to our admin assistant, Simmer. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Simmer and I go by he and him pronouns and all my access needs are met. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, and then we have regrets from the English counselor. Next, we will move on to our consent agenda, so on to section 4.1. So just a reminder that the consent agenda, it was explained during the last External and Community Affairs Committee meeting, that this is kind of where normally stuff which isn't controversial comes. Of course, that doesn't mean that this cannot be discussed. So all you have to do is one member just has to be like, oh, hey, can we get to talk about this more, or a motion, can we talk about this more? We'll pull it out and then treat it as a normal motion. So with that being said, I'll just now call, are there any objections to what is under the consent agenda? Well, first of all, I'll read it out. Be it resolved to drop the consent agenda by unanimous consent. I'll just wait for that. So what's under the consent agenda is 4.1.1, matters arising from the minutes motion of our last committee meeting. And then 4.1.2, ratification of regrets motion. So be it resolved to ratify the regrets from the English counselor Gabe Leosis for the ECA meeting today. Now I will call upon it. Be it resolved to adopt the consent agenda by unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please raise your hand using the Zoom function. Seems like there is nothing, so that is carried unanimously. Perfect. On to section 7, reports from committees. So section 7.1 is reports from the Office of the Vice President, External and Community Affairs. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm just gonna read out like some things that I've been working on. Let me know if you have any questions. Just list yourself in the chat, saying list. So yeah, so right now I think what we have been working on we're just getting ready for ongoing projects. So one of them being municipal elections. I know that we talked about this last time, but in terms of what I have done so far is that I've just kind of sent emails to student unions asking about debates. So what kind of happens there is Gabe and we reached out to student unions. We haven't really gotten too many responses. So we might have to send up a follow-up email, but that's just what we've been working on. And more so we have drafted some emails for MLAs, which we want them to talk about why municipal elections are important. So we're gonna do that, send those out, and then we're gonna get some committee members to talk about why they think municipal elections are important, and then kind of just involving the student body. Something else that I've been working on, and I have been getting help from Gabe on, is planning a day of celebration for the gondola, because it is such a huge win, because as we talked about before, it was worked on for over 10 years. So for 7 years, it was full on student advocacy. And then we got the university to come on board with this campaign. Of course, students were spearheading it. So we're kind of just working on inviting some alumni who helped with that, getting some representation from SFU2 to kind of show that when we do come together for campaigns, they are successful, and we got such a huge win. More so, we actually put a news post out. It's on the SFSS website, so if you want to share that around, I can send a link to the news post after this meeting over email. I also had a meeting with other student societies about the UPass contract. So right now we're in a contract with Translink till about, I think they said 2025. So we're starting kind of like early talks about, okay, would we want to launch a campaign about this contract nearing 2025 when we look at the whole contract again? Do we even want to renew this contract? So it's kind of like initial stages of what we want, what the students want. I had a meeting with staff today, and I talked about maybe putting out a survey to students, seeing how they use the UPass, and then how we can kind of better advocate for what students want out of the UPass if they're getting what they want out of it right now. In terms of what we can do specifically right now is we can make, so right now there are meetings that we have, and it's like we can make like little tiny tweaks and changes. So we're kind of seeing what we can do there. I have a meeting in August for this with some other student societies. So that's just kind of an update there. I also got next kind of thing that I've been working on in terms of what we talked about last time for the water drive. I know I delegated a lot of tasks, but as for what I'm doing, so I got a briefing note on some sponsors that we could probably have to give water donations to, for the water drive that we want to do. I can share that briefing note after as well. So I'm just kind of working on a draft email to send to those sponsors. I was kind of just waiting to see what you folks thought of it, and kind of seeing what other organizations are already doing before I send anything. And then, yeah, that's basically it for reports from the Office of the VP External. Any questions, comments? I'll just wait a minute to see if anything pops up in the chat. Okay, well, that concludes our reports from committees. On to section 10 of new business. So we have one motion today. And so under 10.1, it is called BC Federation of Students Visit to the Student Union Building. So this was submitted by myself. Can I get a mover?
History moves.
History moved. Can I get a seconder, please? Anita seconds. Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, I'll just read out the motion and then I'll explain a bit and then I'll read it again and then obviously discuss. So yeah, be it resolved to pass up to $100 for food and drink for the BC Federation of Students visit to the Student Union Building. Since I submitted this, I will explain a little bit about it. So the BC Federation of Students, I had a virtual meeting with one of their staff, and we kind of just talked about some initiatives and campaigns that we've been working on, and we actually aligned on a lot of stuff. So for example, one of the things we aligned on was the cap for international students' tuition at 2% as it is for domestic students. So I mean like the raise in tuition that happens every year. So we'd want to bring that cap to international students as well. Specifically why they want to come to the sub too is because they have some campaign materials they would like to share with us. Also, we have been, from what I know, working with them for a while, so giving a tour of the sub. Also opening this up for a little bit of discussion too. I just wanted to get some numbers on if some committee members would like to join this meeting as well. It will be on July 25th in the sub. And it will be at 1:30 p.m. So I'll put that in the chat. So just to reiterate again, if anyone from the committee wants to come, July 25th in the sub at 1:30 p.m. So yeah, so kind of just building those relationships with other organizations that do campaigns, having a tour of the sub, getting to know each other, and yeah, seeing what we can work on because there's power in student numbers. I will open it up for discussion now if there's any on it. Any questions? Okay, Nebula in the chat said, I'll be at work, but I hope it goes well. Minna Hill said in the chat, sorry, we're in the sub. It is the room right across the Go desk. I think it's room 3210. I can send an email. I'm honestly not too sure. I think I have it here. But it's in one of the meeting rooms. Let me see. Yeah, I don't have the exact room right now. I'll have to look at the confirmation. But also, if folks don't know right now, just send me an email and then we can figure that out. But it would be super great if folks could come out. Any questions on this motion? Matt said in the chat, I'm unsure if I'll be able to attend for right now. Yeah, no worries at all. As I said before, send a text over on the WhatsApp group chat, send me an email, whatever is easier for you folks, and we can figure it out. Yeah, okay, so now any more discussion before we go on to the motion? Seeing none, I'll just read out the motion again so we know what we are voting on. Be it resolved to pass up to $100 for food and drink for the BC Federation of Students visit to the Student Union Building. Now I would like to ask, let's bring this to a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand using the Zoom raise hand function. Okay, and that carries with unanimous consent. Perfect, thank you, folks. Also, before we move on, I would just like to say if there are any questions about Robert's rules while we're going through, or if you're not sure what we're voting on, please do raise your hand or list in the chat, and then I'll try and make it as clear as possible because I do know that Robert's rules can be a little confusing sometimes. Yeah, with that being said, on to section 11, discussion items. Yeah, so we will move on to 11.1, talking about ongoing projects. So I'll just open this up for discussion. Since I submitted it, I'll explain a little bit what we will be talking about. So what we talked about last time was about municipal elections. So I think we'll start off with municipal elections. So as I said before, emails were sent out to other student unions about having debates. We're still talking to MLAs about having videos for the elections, kind of just talking about why they are important. Yeah, and I know that last time we talked about having some ways to get the students involved in municipal elections. I know, Nebula, you talked about as well about maybe having like a board or something. I was wondering if maybe we can just expand on some of the things we talked about last time in regards to municipal elections, if you are willing to. Oh, please take your time.
Yeah, I might need a second to put my thoughts together.
Yeah, no, of course. So kind of just talking about municipal elections until you're ready, Nebula. So it's coming up. I know it's going to come up pretty quick. We're kind of still looking at a timeline. Right now, I'm trying to get a master doc set up of what is happening. So the master doc will include a timeline. So maybe we can even discuss some of that right now. And then I'll be sharing this doc with you folks, and then we can talk about it a bit more. In terms of a kind of a rough timeline we're looking at right now, in June, we just started the conversations. In July, it was brought to the committee. We talked about it a bit at the last committee meeting. So July is kind of just getting things together. So in July, we kind of just want to have a timeline set up. A rough timeline right now is, so July, talking to the university, we already reached out for having a polling station. So that is already being tasked by the university to figure out if we can have one. And then further talk, sending out emails to MLAs, getting out communications in July as well. So communications meaning, let's start setting up our social media. Let's start setting up posters that we're going to put around. Let's talk to SFU about where we can put these posters, because we need to do that before we poster up. But yeah, any discussion on this, please list yourself in the chat.
I need to list myself.
Go ahead, Nebula.
I love some of the ideas that came up, and I think we got a little bit further into the creative planning behind it. As an education major, I was super interested in just the education pieces we can do, because a lot of local young people don't know very much about municipal politics. So I'm looking at the notes from last meeting,
Yes.
at the approved minutes, and I think that we were very interested in boothing and also creating information packages to also share online as infographics. And I think having interactive maps would be really meaningful. And we talked about having different committees for each of the 3 municipal areas that SFU campuses fall onto. So Burnaby, Vancouver, and Surrey, with maybe a little bit of participation at the like in Surrey for like, neighboring areas, or in Burnaby for New West or Coquitlam. Feel free to jump in and add anything if I'm forgetting details. But yeah, I love the idea of big maps of like, which area are you in? We could do booths like that throughout September. And we really want to partner with other post-secondaries to host these debates, which I don't know too much about what conversations need to happen for that, but I'm quite happy to help with that. As somebody who's very civically engaged, I'd be very enthusiastic about putting together information about Vancouver or Burnaby candidates, as I kind of straddle the border of both. And I vote in Vancouver, but I'm also quite involved in Burnaby stuff. What else is there? I see social media posters, September tabling. Did we decide on a timeline for tabling?
Yeah, I can jump in here for tabling. I think we chose around after the first week of September because I think we decided that in the first week it's a bit busy for everyone. So in the second week of September, we can start tabling. I know we only just brought up tabling. I guess we can kind of go a bit further with this conversation in terms of what will tabling look like? Like, do we want to give out food and snacks? How many people will be there? Do we want to have, I feel like we should have information packages ready by the time that we're tabling. Do we want to have a QR code for information packages? Will there be a website for this? And then what can we kind of share during tabling? Any thoughts on this?
I think that second week of September might be too soon because we might not have all the candidate statements and stuff. And it might be a little, like people are still figuring out their schedules in the second week.
Okay.
So I would say like towards the end of September makes more sense.
Okay. End of September, that makes sense to me with the reasoning.
Yeah, like, I mean, there is Clubs Day happening, I think the third week. So we can, and then when is like the street festival is also happening at the end of September as well, right? I think we want to like time it so that it's not drowned out while there's so many other things happening.
Yeah, bringing up a good point about Street Fest as well, like just making sure when other things are happening, we're not just there like municipal elections. Yeah, so kind of what I'm hearing is like end of September, we're gonna table, and then are we thinking that we want to do tabling, I'm guessing as well, like at the start or mid-October, because elections are on October 15th. So do we want to table in the first week of October as well? You can just jump in.
Yeah, I think maybe not even tabling at the end of September then. If there's so many other things happening, maybe October, just only for that week of first week and second week of October going really hard. There's also advance polls, right? And that's usually a week or so in advance. So I think the first week of October is the most effective time. And by then we should have candidate statements.
Yeah, by then have candidate statements. Yeah, I feel like it'll be quite busy in the fall when candidate statements do come out. And then, because I know we had some ideas of looking at maybe having like little check boxes for people to make it easy to see who aligns with what. So talking about that, I feel like we can establish those working groups in a bit. I don't think at this meeting, but also when we bring it to council and things like that, that we have this plan, of course, when it's more solidified. So kind of just recapping about what we talked about, like maybe even just tabling in the first week of October. I was thinking I can even look at what was done last year, if there was tabling done, when it was successful and when it wasn't. So that's an action item for me. So I can talk to staff about seeing what worked last year with the Get Out to Vote campaign, which was federal. And we can see like what we kind of want to do there. Also, I think you brought up a really great point about advanced polls, Nebula. I didn't think about that before, so kind of having that ready for people. Yeah, that sounds good to me. So kind of like from like conversations that I've had and what I'm seeing, July is more kind of, July and August are more planning kind of things and like solidifying the timeline. And then September is kind of like when we'll kind of be having those, okay, let's start getting tabling ready, like if we're gonna have food and stuff and getting those information packages. And I'm thinking also in August, that's when we can kind of make those videos with MLAs so we can have them ready in September and we can post one every couple days. So August, what I'm seeing is kind of shoot the videos. What are folks thinking about that?
I think the videos are a cool idea, but I don't think it should be our number 1 priority because it could also get confusing because these are not folks that are running. These are folks that are already elected to federal and provincial positions. And pretty much all the videos are saying is voting is cool, right?
Yeah.
You should vote.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so from what I'm hearing and also in the chat, Matt said that's a good point. Not prioritizing this, so more looking at like our own outreach and then just having this as like kind of a supplement. So if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, not a huge deal. Also, Matt, yeah, what Matt said in the chat, we shouldn't need more than a few videos, maybe. I agree with that. If we're reaching out to MLAs, it'll only be about like 4 to 5 videos at the end of the day, too. I think what would be affected, I was talking to the president of the SFSS, and you're talking about maybe having students do some videos as well. So kind of saying why they think they're important.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
I was just going to suggest that.
Okay.
I love it.
Student videos.
We could also run an article in the Peak.
Yeah. Ooh, that's an amazing. Yes, that's so cool.
And then the radio, CJSF has said that they would love to have more, like students wanting to say stuff. So yeah, they're always down for stuff. I don't know very much about how the radio station works, but it's been kind of one of my goals for the year is to learn more about it. So
yeah, very cool. Any more discussion on this point? Of course, this will be revisited. This is just kind of initial still. And I think most of
I do see in the notes here that there's the VP External, wants to know if we can get a polling station on campus. I think this is something that we should probably start looking into sooner rather than later, because there might be you might get redirected a bunch of times, so that might take time.
Yeah, so for
it might be good to start inquiring.
Yeah, so for the polling station, that has been tasked to SFU to figure it out because awesome. They're the ones who talk to the elections officers. Yeah, so we're on that.
Yay.
Yeah, thanks for checking in though. Perfect.
I think that, I think that I'm pretty down to put together a bunch of stuff in late September for this. This is one of the things that's happening coming up that I'm most excited about because awesome. I love voting and I think voting is very cool. And I think, if each of us can also write a little blurb about why we think voting is cool just for social media purposes, closer to, that would also be great.
Yeah, 100%. Even just thinking about that, having a blurb and if folks are willing and at capacity, having those videos, I think it's super cool to hear from students. And also other students, seeing other students engage, it's kind of asks the questions of, oh, why? And then it'll get people looking into it. So that's an awesome idea. Thank you.
Are we going to be recruiting for new members at large in September?
Yes, we will.
Yeah, okay. So that could be one of the things of we're looking for members at large and we're also looking for volunteers for this campaign.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Any other thoughts on this, on municipal elections? Okay, yeah, well, in the next kind of item in itself of ongoing projects is the water drive. So we had some tasks delegated to folks last time. So I'm going to open this up for discussion for the water drive. Any updates that folks have, let me know. List yourself in the chat or unmute.
So I can start. I think last time I talked about reaching out to Night Owls Outreach, and I did. And awesome. They said they would be thrilled to reach to help us out if we needed help. And that's why I wanted to ask you, do we want to ask them for anything? They suggested that we do it during the day because it's hotter, they're thirstier. And I asked if there were any good spots that we could go to, and they said, this very central SkyTrain station or a safe point, and they said if you could bring any little snacks or sandwiches, that would be great, but if you can't, that's also fine.
Awesome.
I think what I wanted to ask you was so how would we collaborate with them if we did? How would that look like?
Yeah, so thank you so much for reaching out to them. I really appreciate it. So from what I'm hearing, it seems like there's super amazing people who want to help us out too. In terms of collaboration, it would probably be as we're doing right now, kind of having questions do we only bring water, do we bring food, things like that. In other terms, I feel like other folks can also get in on this, but maybe I feel like information would be like the best way of like collaboration, or even if we can come help out at something that they are doing. So for example, if they're giving out food or water, if they need volunteers, maybe we can send some folks from the committee. In terms of like our own project, if they want to also come and join us, more than welcome to. But what do other folks think?
So I guess what I kind of understood from this was like so we could volunteer with each other. So if they're hosting something, members from our committee, we could go and help volunteer with their event. And if we hosted the water drive, I could ask them if like, hey guys, if you have any like big arms, send them our way.
Yeah, so I think especially like in this committee, we want to stand in solidarity with other like grassroots organizers. So if folks like within the committee or even council are at capacity and we can help the community, I feel like it would be great for counselors and folks to show up. And as for ourselves too, just making sure like we're not reinventing the wheel and things like that. Like if they want to help out or if they have any tips or tricks for us, like even hearing about locations and having snacks for folks. Even I feel like it's even more of like a guiding thing as well is super great. But it's great to hear that they agree with our initiative too. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for reaching out again.
Pleasure.
Yeah. In terms of next steps, if you would want to reply to them and tell them that we are willing to help out and if they would like to come when we do give out water or snacks and things. Of course, we don't
do we have a date yet or
we're kind of gonna have to watch the weather. So
we're thinking summertime, eh?
Yeah, summertime. Yeah. I feel like well, you never really know when a heat wave will come to, especially with how the weather is changing. I guess we could just say like when there are expected heat waves. Of course, we can't really like tell 2 weeks in advance. So maybe if we see the weather is going to be like over 40 degrees like this one week, we can be like, hey, we're planning on maybe going out this day. Would you folks be available to come?
Sure.
Awesome. And then okay, that's amazing. I'm really happy with that response. Amazing. Thank you so much. Cool. Any other discussion on the water drive? Cool. I can bring up something that Alexandra sent over email. So they said that they reached out to Jenny Kwan and they replied. So Alexandra and I will be having a meeting with them on Thursday at 2:30 p.m. To talk more about like the water drive and the initiative. So we can report back to the committee on what comes out of that. Yeah. Any thoughts?
I do have one thought.
I hope it goes well.
Oh, just remember to list in the chat or raise your hand so we're not talking over each other. And to list in the chat, you just go list. Yes, Minaho, go ahead.
Do we have a list of spots that we're gonna go to?
Currently Alexandra, one sec. I'll just wait till we connect. Hello, Alexandra, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, we're just in the middle of our discussion items, but would you like to introduce yourself? So name, pronouns, access needs.
Absolutely. So my name is Alexandra and my pronouns are she, her, hers. My access needs are all met. I don't really have many, so it's all good. Hi, sorry for being late, just had schedule conflicts on Monday.
Yeah, no worries at all. No worries at all. I think, so right now we were just talking about the water drive. Minahil, you were saying something. Would you, could you repeat yourself? I don't know if I was replying to what you
I
said.
just wanted to ask, are we like have we started developing a list of all the different locations that we want to go to, or?
So we were thinking, I think as you said, by the Surrey Central Sky train station, so right by SFU campus, will be one of the places where we may hand out water, fruit, snacks, whatever, after we get that follow-up email. Talking about that, Minna, would you want to maybe ask like what kinds of snacks or what kinds of sandwiches we could possibly bring if we do have the funding?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Matthew listed in the chat. Go ahead.
Hey everyone. So actually, Anna brought up an interesting point that we should consider. So the idea of having a list of good spots to have. So maybe we should like make an Excel document for like the cities or townships that we want to go out to, and then make a list of the exact locations within that, and then maybe contacts that we can reach out to within those locations. So that way we know instantly, okay, we're doing a spot in Surrey Central. We know who to talk to. We reach out to them, say, hey, we're doing a water drive this day, this time. If you have the capacity to help out, that'd be great. If not, all good. And that way we can make it really easy for us to coordinate to that end. And then on top of that too, for any future ECA that wants to take up this role, they also have easy access to this.
Perfect. Yeah. That is such an amazing idea. Yeah, I think what we were talking about before too, like even just having this project as a kind of guide for the next VP external, so it's easy to just like come and get it running instead of starting from scratch for something like this. So I just wrote that down as an action item for myself. First, I'll start an Excel sheet for this, and then I can share it with you folks, and then we can have exact areas. Talking about this now, are there any exact areas folks think we should go to? So I was thinking about Surrey Central by the SkyTrain station and the downtown east side. Any specific other places folks would want to go to? Go ahead, Alexandra.
So before someone else like brings up some ideas, I just wanted to mention that for downtown east side, I reached out to Triage shelter and to women's shelter and didn't get a response, but luckily got a response from Jenny Kwan today. I was waiting for it, and so it finally happened, and they want to meet with us on Thursday at 2:30 on Zoom. I'll forward the link to Ishana and you can forward it to the rest. And they kind of want to talk about what we have in mind and what our project is. And I think that it would be really good to listen to them when it comes to locations, or like whether we should drop it off somewhere, right? And just like let the shelters kind of distribute it. Just because I live really close by and sometimes it just gets a little bit dangerous there. Like there was a stabbing at Tim Hortons downtown, like east side. And I think it's important to also keep in mind our safety, but only for this specific location. I think that the SkyTrain station would be totally fine, or anywhere near SFU is totally fine, but just downtown east side, I think we just should be a little careful, which is great that we have this meeting set up for Thursday.
Thank you, Alexandra. Go ahead, Nebula.
Hi, as a former downtown east side resident, I'm kind of offended by that. I and some friends that we used to every Tuesday night from like 11 p.m. until like 1 in the morning hand out hundreds of sandwiches at like one of the busiest street corners, and people were like, it's chaotic, sure, but people are nothing if not like kind and generous and protective of their neighbors in the neighborhood. And so if you're showing up there with very clear intentions, it shouldn't be unsafe. And if we're also showing up with folks who are from the community, then there should also be that sense of like connection, right? However, the downtown east side is very, very dense. And so that's, I think, the major logistical trouble is that, yeah, there's so many different people going so many different directions, and to find the best hubs to pass out water are, I think, a more valid concern. Because the chances of you getting stabbed in the downtown east side while handing out water are not very high. It's not zero, but it's it's not my number one concern.
Go ahead, Alexandra.
No, totally. Like, I don't mean that it's like that everywhere. What I mean is that I think we should just keep that in mind, that not everybody had the same experience, so they might not feel as comfortable as you. For example, I hardly ever walk around there, and when I did, I just had a little bit of a traumatizing experience, but I'm not generalizing. I'm just like making a point that maybe, and these conversations are really good because, you know, that's how we find out how it actually is, and we can figure out what's the best way to organize it.
Yeah, I can jump in here too. Of course, not making assumptions about communities and certain places too. I think that we can talk to Jenny Kwan as well. I also know that a lot of organizations have gone to the downtown east side and given food and things, but also it is in our own capacities and what we want to do and how we want to do it. So kind of going forward from here, I'm going to say that if folks are willing or feel comfortable to go, you can go. And then if you don't, your own like personal choice too, because we will have like other locations. I do know that I would want to like go, like have some of us go down to the downtown east side if people are like willing and at capacity. Just I think like when we have that conversation, like I want to bring up with Jenny Kwan, like what are some places like where, like I think Nebula, you were talking about density too, right? So thinking about that, I think that's something that I can bring, sorry, Matt is joining in again, something I can bring up to Jenny about, okay, what do we do about like the density of the situation, to also thinking about, I know that some people may be immunocompromised, so thinking about COVID. So we can kind of see how that would work. How does that sound to folks, like this conversation going forward? All right, okay, got a thumbs up. Nebula said in the chat, a big community hub is the Carnegie Center at Main and Hastings. Okay, that sounds good. I can look at that as well. Let me just write that down. Carnegie Center. I probably didn't pronounce that right. Sorry. At Main and Hastings. Thank you, Nebula. Perfect. So maybe that's one of the spots that we could go to or get other people involved in as well. Okay, cool. Any other spots people think we can go to, exact locations, even if you don't have an exact location, just somewhere and we can figure it out? Seeing nothing moving in the chat, no hands. I'm assuming not. Any other conversation about the water drive overall before we move on? Yes, Alexandra? Just
about the snacks. I think that would be very depending on what the snacks are and very weather dependent. And what would be in the sandwiches, if these were sandwiches, because if we are thinking about the weather and just like standing there and handing it out, I think we also need to think about coolers, because just in this kind of weather, it might not survive very well.
Yeah, definitely. I can look into coolers with our events team as well, see if we have anything in our storage. Another action item for me, so contact events. Cool. So I'll see if we have coolers and things like that. Any other thoughts? Yeah, I think that was a really, really good discussion. In terms of like next steps for the water drive, I'll also reach out to the VP Equity, who is currently on LOA, so they aren't able to attend this meeting. So I will talk to them because I know that they were also tasked to talk to some folks. So Alexandra, Minahill was updating us about how I think Night Owls reached out and they were like super excited about like our initiative, and they told us a lot of stuff about like what we can do. And we were talking about maybe how we can like help them in their initiatives, and then if they want to come and support ours, they are more than welcome to do so. Obviously not putting that upon them, but if they're willing in that capacity, that would be cool. Also, Nebula put in the chat, sorry, I didn't see that before. There's a lot of logistical issues that come up if we give perishable food. Okay, Nebula, would you want to expand on that a bit too?
No, I mean, it was just what was being talked about before of like coolers and stuff. I think non-perishable food makes the most sense. My personal experience, when it's really, really, really hot out, I'm not that hungry. So if people have a snack that they can maybe eat once the sun goes down, you know, or whenever they feel hungry, that makes more sense to me than something that they have to eat right then and there.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for saying that. So yeah, we can look a bit into that. So maybe like moving away a bit from like sandwiches and then having more things like maybe in like packets or something that people can just take.
Yeah, also something to note just when shopping for stuff is that a lot of folks that, you know, when we were making sandwiches, we had to make a lot that had no crusts because many people have dental issues.
Okay.
So yeah, we'd also use smooth peanut butter instead of chunky. Also, we should avoid things that are common allergens. So no nuts, and yeah, softer granola bars or softer, you know, fruit snacks and things like that, just to be as accessible as possible.
Yeah, 100%. I was also thinking when we do when you do get like more into like the nitty-gritty of this initiative, we can also loop in the accessibility committee and also like the equity and sustainability committee to see what those folks think as well, and see how we can make this in the most accessible way and like in the most equitable way as well. So we can kind of collaborate between committees and then see what other folks think. That sound good to folks? Perfect. Amazing. Getting some thumbs up. Amazing. Okay, cool. Any other thoughts on this? Seeing none. Okay, on to our last ongoing project, an anti-TMX Day of Action. So I just kind of wanted to provide some updates on a town hall that Ria and I went to. So it was the one I kind of promoted on Discord, and I talked about it over email. So it was the community town hall, and it was a really great experience because it kind of showed the youth that are here to like make that difference and who are like putting in the work and having these days of actions and things. Kind of what came out of that for me was I signed up for an email list, and then there's going to be a meeting. I don't know when, but it's going to be about like having days of action. So I was thinking before we like do any planning or anything like that for like a specific day, I'll attend that meeting. I also want to share the link to the meeting because I'm pretty sure it's online. Once I get an email, I'll send something out. I'll give an update over an email if it's like after an ECA committee or like too far before. So I'm kind of looking into that, kind of seeing what community is doing, and then seeing what we can support in community, and then like kind of talking to community about how, okay, what are we going to do next? And like if we can do like a day of action, what would that look like? And yeah, so kind of talking about that. I was also thinking, I know we had like a big idea for like a day of action, but also I was thinking like I like learning a lot and doing my own education. There's so much that this pipeline is going to affect negatively. So I was thinking maybe we as a committee, we can also do some tabling up in the sub, and then have a couple days to just talk about the TMX pipeline and be like, hey, have you gone up Gaglardi? Like, did you know a tank farm is literally being built at the only intersection up to the campus? Things like that. So what do folks think about maybe tabling before? I know we talked about like having that education piece, But just to like put it out there too, like I was talking to this one person, they said that if one toxic gas like comes out from like the tank farm, like it can literally paralyze you from the waist down. And I was like, oh my goodness, and no one knows about this. And then when I brought it up to politicians, all they would say is, when I would say, can we stop this? All they say is, well, it's already being built. And we will not be accepting that answer because it's literally being built on stolen land. So, any thoughts on this? List yourself in the chat or raise your hand. Go ahead, Nebula.
Sorry, I zoned out for a moment. When are we thinking of tabling?
Yes, so we're thinking of tabling because I was just thinking more about, because I think I explained this at the last committee meeting as well, is we were giving out donuts one day and we were talking about the TMX pipeline and people were like, what? I didn't even know this. And I'm up on campus, like this can happen. And I was like, yes, it can happen. And they're like, well, what's happening? We're like, they're building it, but we're going to stop it. So we're kind of seeing like how we can educate students, really, really, really get the word out. Because we're talking about getting the word out, but we have to like really like come together as community and like get the word out about this pipeline. So what are folks thinking about it? Like, how can we table? What will be successful? And in terms of like the day of action, we're kind of thinking about doing that once we see what community's doing, seeing how we can support and amplify them. And then once that, like obviously continued support, but seeing if we want to, when we do our own, like how will that work, what community thinks about it, things like that.
Are we able to set aside any funding for like I don't know, just for like if SFU 350 wants to do anything, like just kind of like earmark like that? Yeah, like cause I'm gonna be taking off and probably not that involved in August, so like yeah, I don't know what my fall is gonna look like, and I really want to be involved, but also I don't know like how much the ECA can spearhead this when also other folks are doing this work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I can talk on that a bit too. I was thinking the same thing because I just really don't want to do the whole reinventing the wheel thing, especially when I realize so much work is being done in community, especially by youth. So I think we can be at a place right now where we're going to kind of see, and also obviously we have to have our own capacities. So kind of like seeing what's going on right now. I'll go to that meeting, see what is needed from us, from the SFSS. Nebula, what you brought up about funding, maybe we can pass a motion to give X amount of dollars towards this and towards days of action that other folks want to do if we can't do our own. How does that sound? Yeah. Okay, perfect. I'm getting some nods. So maybe we can talk about bringing a motion to this committee and then seeing what we want to pass. Of course, once we do our own research, once I have those meetings, see who needs it, what we can do, and then go from there. Perfect. What a fruitful conversation. That was very great. I feel like we kind of got to some consensus. Okay, so motions, possible, talk to community. Perfect. Any other thoughts on this?
Are we able to just offer like, hey, if you want, like, are we able to just offer like money for the snacks for the meeting or money for, you know, like things like that? Because those are always crucial to any movement, but I know that there's also limits on what SFSS can fund. Yeah. If it's not like our event, do we have to be the host of an event in order to like financially support it? I tried this with my club. I tried to sponsor a poetry event with poetry club funds, and they were like, oh, it has to be your event, you have to be the host. So like yeah.
Yeah, I can give some insight to that. So essentially, the SFSS overall opposes the TMX pipeline, and as such, we support work that opposes the pipeline. We can look at our own issues policy as well. So I can look into that further. So I'll look at the issues policy. I literally just looked at it the other day, but we oppose the pipeline and we stand with with Indigenous folks and what they do and their fight for community. So looking at that, I wouldn't see a reason why we could not give funding. I can look into that further just to make sure we don't get in trouble or anything. But as you said, like even I was thinking about, hey, maybe we can just donate some snacks for the event or the day of action. And then that would just be passed within this committee because it would most probably be under $5,000. And we only have 10K within our budget. So that would just be something that one of us or even I could just bring as a motion. We say, okay, let's do this. But that's something I can check in on and then I can report back at the next committee meeting if that sounds good. Okay, so look at the issues policy and then bring a motion to whatever is coming. But I really like the idea of like donating some snacks or seeing what we can do. Perfect. Any other thoughts on this? Sounds good? Perfect. Okay, so that concludes, sorry, let me look. That concludes our discussion item of 11.1. Let's move on to discussion item 11.2. So meeting with Alliance of BC Students update. Okay, so I'll start this off. So kind of just an update because we passed the motion for like the snacks and the food and stuff and the coffee at the last meeting. So the VP Finance, Abby, the VP Equity, Ria, and then VP External, me, we met with the Alliance of BC Students, we met with their president and their chairperson. So we kind of were like, okay, we're like two organizations and we really want to advocate. So what are we going to do? So we kind of started off the conversation with it was just an introductory meeting. We kind of just talked about ourselves and our roles and kind of what we want out of our roles, because I feel like every single executive like has different projects and names, obviously in pertaining to their portfolio. So we kind of just talked about that. So something that we all kind of talked about and we all wanted to do something about was, as I said before, the cap for the international student tuition raise. So bringing that down to 2% as it is for domestic students. So we're like, hey, why don't we start this campaign from scratch? Because it feels like everyone is kind of just doing their own thing. Why don't we just like start from scratch, start this campaign from the bottom up, and then talk to other student unions as well. So right now, what we kind of like talked about and planned was reaching out to the University of Victoria Student Society as well as the AMS, the Student Society of UBC. And what we're gonna do is we want to kind of do this campaign where, because I was talking to the chairperson of the Alliance of BC Students, and they said something that really worked and something that is super effective is something that they do on social media. So it would be a video kind of highlighting the experiences of international students and like what they go through and how they're treated so differently and in such a horrible way. So we would kind of be like, this is the reality, this is what we're asking for, and why we're asking for it is within this video. And obviously like there'll be work with like, oh, like there'll be toolkits and things like that, and there'll be like a template for like emails of what you want to send your political officials. But it was something I'm really, really happy about that came out of this meeting. So update on bringing in other student societies. I've talked to the AMS and they seem on board. We're going to plan a meeting with them. I'm still waiting for a reply from the UVSS, but from prior conversations that I've had with them, they seem to also be in agreement with this campaign. So once again, just reiterating, kind of just starting it because there's so much work happening everywhere. We really just need to ground ourselves and be like, okay, what are we doing? How are we actually going to get this to happen? One more thing that I'm going to bring up before I open it up for more discussion. CapU actually had a successful campaign on this. So we're going to, the chairperson of the ABCS actually has connections to CapU. They're actually the VP external at CapU. So we're going to like see if we can see what was, what worked for them and if we can kind of adopt some of the methods that they used. Yeah, I'll open this up for discussion. Please raise your hand or list in the chat. if there is no discussion, no worries there. As I always say, like just ask me when you do have questions, because I do know that we do talk a lot during these meetings. Yeah, well, I'm assuming like folks agree with this. I'm just kind of seeing like if folks are, what do you think about this? Okay, reading the room, I'm feeling like it's okay. Like the energy seems fine. Yeah, Alexandra?
I think that reaching out to people you listed to find out what made it work is a great idea. Just because if it worked there, there are high chances that we can, you know, just implement whatever needs to be implemented, and hopefully it works.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for sure. Also, we realize that a lot of the time it's always like the bigger universities doing this because we have like the resources and the money and things. So what we want to do is we want to reach out to other clubs or organizations who actually fight for international students' rights, seeing what they're doing and how we can kind of help them too. And then also reaching out to like colleges which have a lot of international students. So right now, initial planning is just between like us four, so the Alliance of BC Students, AMS, UVSS, SFU. I mean SFSS, AMS, UVSS, sorry, student societies. And kind of just starting it off with our resources and then kind of spreading out our resources when we have a better plan. And once we kind of know what we're talking about, we're going to have those bigger meetings. And that's something that I'll invite the committee to, and we can continue those conversations. But yeah, before I close this discussion item, any other thoughts? Seeing none, that concludes 11.2. We can move on to 11.3, which is Translink 10-year priorities plan. This was also submitted by myself, so I'll just start it off. As we know, we have, sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about there. Okay, so the gondola got passed, it was endorsed by City Council, and then the funding got passed. Yay, woohoo, next steps. So we kind of want to inform membership of what's happening because, okay, they'll hear this happened, so what happens next? Gabe and I, we met people at the Translink roundtable in Maple Ridge where Matthew was also present. So we kind of we reached out to them and we're like, hey, can we get some in-depth review of the gondola? And they said, sure. So we want to maybe plan like a roundtable at the SFSS. So we book a room. We're probably thinking like the big boardroom we have on the 4th floor. So then we're going to do a thing and we're going to be like, so then these two people from Translink are going to come. We're going to tell membership about this, invite people in, tell council, of course, committee. So what we want to do is we want to have maybe like an hour or two to talk about the gondola and have questions answered of students. So that's just kind of like an update for what we want to know, especially because they're talking about this being a 10-year plan and they're saying that this can be built in about 5 to 6 years. So we're thinking, okay, like, will this be at the latter part of the 10-year plan? Like, what does it mean to be part of like a priority plan? And kind of things like that. Do folks have any input on what the roundtable can kind of look like, how we can get the word out? Any thoughts there? Also, I can give you some time to think about it and then just list or raise your hand. Of course, Matt. Take your time. Go ahead, Matt.
Sorry about that. Just finishing eating. So I have a couple ideas on this. One, we may not want to use the big ballroom. That's a lot of space. It is going to show a lot if we aren't able to fill out that entire area. So let's not waste our budget by booking the biggest room possible. We can rent like one of the smaller rooms. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really know the big room on the 4th floor. I thought that was just kind of like what it was meant for. So my bad. In terms of trying to like reach out, I think it's a really good idea to reach out to like council and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then let's also bear in mind that like a lot of our membership are frequent transit users. So while they might be concerned about the gondola, I know for myself that is like one aspect of my transit. That is not even like the biggest aspect of my transit.
Yeah.
What concerns me more so is the transit from Maple Ridge all the way out to Production Way University or something like that.
Okay.
So I think it would be a bad idea, not necessarily a bad idea, but it might be setting the representative from the Translink up for failure if they just come prepped for gondola questions. So maybe phrase it like that.
Okay.
And then when we're trying to address it out to our membership, maybe mention it like, hey, we have all of these plans that are really important, like have it be Translink roundtable plus in-depth discussion on the gondola, making the gondola like focus, but not the focus, you know?
100%. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I feel like that's such a good point, just because even when I was campaigning to even get the VP external position, I was talking to students in Abbotsford who have such a tough time getting down here, especially because the transit systems are different. Like, it's not all Translink. So maybe that's something that we can also bring up. So of course, seeing the gondola, but also there's so many other aspects. So thank you for bringing that up and telling me about that, because now within communications, I'll tell them to maybe prepare and then see if they have plans for Abbotsford or Maple Ridge, or if they've heard about students having issues from other places. Because even thinking about it, like even from Surrey, like people complain about like having to like do that extra mile, you know, even though it's easier and more mainstream. But yeah, 100. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Perfect. Any other thoughts on this? Perfect. Yeah, so kind of thinking about this for next steps, something that I can bring up to them is like, okay, let's highlight the gondola as a win, but that's something that we won. What else can we work on? We'll be like, and we already know how to campaign. We do it well. We advocate well. So we can use those same methods towards other things. And then we can talk about what is viable and what they think is viable. But also at the same time, so many people didn't think that the gondola was something that could be done. And now it's being done. So nothing is too out of the ordinary, you know, like we can totally, like, if you have ideas about it, bring it up, and then maybe we can have a plan on like how we can bring this up as a question so it does get answered. Yeah, and also Matt, I did note down bringing this to council as well, and then we'll be sharing it to membership as well. Talking about this, do you think this would be a good discussion item for council to see what they would bring back? Okay, I got a nod. So bring as discussion item. Yes, Matt, go ahead.
I think it would be a really great opportunity actually to mention this to council, because I know there are many other councillors that transit themselves, and what better way to reach out to our membership than to have our councillors do the reaching out for us, right?
Yeah.
That would honestly take a lot of legwork off of us having to reach out to students, and it would put the onus on councillors like myself. Make it so you don't maybe have to email the entire membership, making it so you could just do a couple social media posts and call it a day.
Yeah.
And then having the rest of us be like, crap, now we have to email our membership. You know, making it our kicking the problem down the street a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I can speak to that a bit too. Something that really worked well was for the tuition freeze survey, Rhea and I reached out to other counselors and we're like, hey, can you send this to your to the people in your faculty or things like that, or DSUs or constituency groups. And it worked really well because it wasn't coming from the SFSS, but coming from your representative who they voted into. Of course, we're all voted in as well, but that coming there, and also, as you said, it takes a load off of us as well, because it's a lot of work to reach out to people and send in those requests and saying, hey, yeah. Also, I feel like it lets counselors know about what's happening as well. So we can say, so when we do reach out to counselors about this, they'll know if they get questions about it, for example, from their membership, is what I'm thinking. So they'll have more of an idea if they're the one sharing the information. Yeah, sounds good to me. Any other thoughts on this? I'll give it a minute too, but really flying through these discussion items. It's only 6:15, 6:14. Okay, sounds good to me. Done. Okay, so that concludes our discussion items for the 10 years priorities plan. We can move on to 11.4. So 11.4 is the BC Anti-Racism Committee. So this actually came into my email. So my email is set up so I get news from the BC government of when new things come up. And then Gabe sent me this, and I can pull up the website. But what this is about is, I'll put the link in the chat, just give me a moment. 1 second, folks. If folks want to look at that chat, that link in the chat. So this is the Anti-Racism Committee. So it's part of the BC's new recently enacted Anti-Racism Data Act. So it's so it'll be a group of 11 people who can apply for this. I think applications are due, well, applications are taken until July 18th, 2022. And it's kind of the first Anti-Racism Act in Canada to be co-developed with Indigenous peoples. So so I just wanted to put the word out there as, like, if folks want to apply, go ahead. Any thoughts on this? Yeah, I think it's pretty good to like have this, and also like apply for things like this and have your voice heard, especially like racialized folks applying for this. So having like the lived experiences, of course, capacity and sharing what you want to share, but I feel like it would be super cool if some folks here wanted to do it, but within your own capacities. I know we're all quite busy. Yeah, I just wanted to put it out there. Any thoughts on this? Yeah, and then you'll see like just opening the link. Just once again, applications will be accepted until July 18th. And you will see like there is a committee chair position, and that is till about 3 years. So it's quite a long commitment to have that for 3 years. If you want to talk about this more, please feel free to reach out to me, and I can get more information. Maybe I can contact someone and see if there are any questions. If folks have any, I can see what I can do if you want to talk to someone. Yeah. Okay, last call. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, that concludes 11.4. Okay, on to it's our last discussion item. So for our last discussion item, 11.5, we have the Housing Now rally by the University of Victoria Student Society. This was submitted by myself. So maybe we can talk about this for a bit, just because I need some input for this. I mean, I need input for everything I do, but especially for this because it's going to be coming up pretty soon. For the Housing Now rally, I've been talking to the UVSS, like their external, they have a different, I think they're called the campaigns coordinator. What they were so we had a conversation a couple weeks ago about how housing is just unattainable. Like people cannot get housing. Students are houseless, students are starving, students are choosing to pay rent over eating. It's just a fact, and that's just how things are going. And we can't stay like this. So especially like at the UVSS, we've been having conversations of like, okay, let's have a day of action, but like, how are we going to do it? What are we going to do? The UVSS wants to have this at their, at the Legislative Assembly in Victoria. So they sent me an email, and the email said, let me just pull it up. I have it here. So in the email, they talked about how, where is it? Okay, anyways, I can try and pull it up after. But they're looking at a day of action, possibly August 25th. So I was seeing maybe if some committee members want to go. I still have to look for funding, but if we can, I was thinking that maybe we can pass funds to get some committee members to go within the ECAC committee, so we can fund for the ferry ride there and back, and then we can go. They're gonna do a protest. It'll be a couple hours, and then we can take a ferry back. I'm just thinking, what do folks think about that? Do we want to use funds for this? Do we want to go in our own capacities as students? What are some thoughts here? Also, please take time to like think over it as well. I know I'm just bringing it up. While folks are thinking, I can try and find the email. Okay. Nebula said in the chat, I think it's a great idea to join, though I will be out of town and unable to. I'm assuming, unable to go. Yes. No worries there. I can kind of talk about, I just brought up the email, so maybe this will clarify some things. So they talked about hoping to present the legislature with their demand. So possibly like some things that they want to do are provide food and sharing space with the community groups as well. Also, they want to encourage folks to maybe put together care packages to be donated to unhoused, precariously housed neighbors. So what they said here is that basically UVSS has a decent sized campaign budget left over from last year that they want to use to feed people in need and encourage solidarity. So looking at that now, no, sorry, go ahead, Matt. Sorry, didn't you see your list before?
No, it's okay. I was going to say it could be worth bringing this up more generally to council as a whole. Okay. Because of, like, it's great to keep it within ECA, but also, one, council has a better budget. Two, I will bet money that there are a number of students that will likely have a much larger capacity than any of us will in any particular period of time. We already have plenty of plans that we have moving forward. Like, there's a water drive, there could be a heat wave in around that time period, and we might have committed our time to that because we felt that was more efficient. Or putting time towards prepping for the elections. Like, this is a fantastic initiative, but we also shouldn't be like selfish about this. We should open it up to other council members to see if there's any interest there. And then if there is interest there, we can also justify passing funds through council to attend this. Just to try and keep it a little bit outside of our budget. Because like this housing is something that's like it's easy for students to relate to, because like students are living on their own. They're pinching pennies always. So I feel like this would be an easy one for students to like get behind, especially if you say, hey, we'll cover your transit costs. That one's a helpful one for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think one of my main concerns was just like funding. So if we can get funding from council, I feel like that kind of solves our problems. And we can, I feel like obviously like opening it up to council and then seeing what we can do there. I think in terms, Nebula, I also saw in the chat, you said, I fully approve using our funds to go if anyone is interested and able. 100%. Also, in terms of like care packages and things, I think maybe we can also bring that to council once I have more of an idea of like what those would look like. I'm going to have a meeting with the UVSS. Also, if they have a healthy budget, seeing maybe if we can be the ones to like help hand them out. If we may not have the capacity to like make the care packages ourselves, if that sounds good to folks. So from what I'm hearing, and if we're like in consensus, I can bring this to council as a discussion item. Once we kind of talk about it, I can bring it as a motion to be like, hey, X amount of people want to go. Can we use funds from this certain line item to go to and cover the ferry costs for transit? Sound like a plan? Okay. So first of all, I'm going to bring it as a discussion item so folks know what to expect. And then after, we're going to bring a motion, well, depending on how the discussion goes as well, and what students feel like doing, of course. And then obviously I was thinking we can help promote this event, this protest as well on our social medias, because I feel like it's something that students do relate to, and then obviously seeing what council thinks. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Also, I said the wrong date. The tentative date is August 26th. Also, this will be at the peak of the housing crunch locally. So in Victoria, it'll be as that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Also, just a couple like last few words here, like just reading the email. So the UVSS wants to present 3 demands, being rent freeze, rent controlled units, and affordable housing development. So kind of from, oh, go ahead, Matt. I see you listed in the chat.
I just want to double check here, make sure that like the BC government will also actually be there to hear the demands. Do we know whether or not? I don't know offhand. I'm searching it right now because it's a question I just thought of.
Yeah.
Does anyone know offhand when they start, like when they reside within the BC legislature, or no? Because if they aren't even in the, because I was under the impression they took summers off.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not even in the parliament building, the legislature building, then there might be no benefit to having a protest.
Mm-hmm. I can provide some insight to this because I had a concern about, well, first of all, this is like this is something coming up an action coming up really soon. So locally in Victoria, this is when they talk about housing. So it'll be beneficial for them as well. I feel like even for us, we're like standing in solidarity, and also we all have the same issues. So it's mostly like coming from that point of view. Also, something that we talked about was just getting mass media out. So just getting media and like talking to news reporters. And I know for a lot of like tuition freeze campaigns, what we've done and what has helped is just talking to media outlets beforehand and getting quotes from students. And it's super powerful. It's really, really powerful, especially when people start sharing it around. So as long as we kind of like make our mark and we're here, we're demanding something, and standing in solidarity with the UVSS, I feel like that's something that we can still commit to. But what do other folks think? I feel like that is something to look at though, Matt. So maybe I can talk to that when we have our meeting, because I have monthly meetings with them. Okay, cool. I can bring that up. Yeah, cool. Any other thoughts on this? Yeah, I think when we have that meeting, I'll update you folks, and then yeah, and then I'm thinking as we said, like main concern is just funding, so we can figure that out at council. But we're in like consensus, like we think this is a good like day of action and things like that. We're in support. Perfect. Any other last concluding thoughts? Seeing none, I'll close discussion item 11.5. So that concludes all of our discussion items. Moving on to section 16 of announcements. So 16.1, BC Federation of Students visit is Monday. There's the date. The date and the time is right there. BC Federation of Students visit is on Monday, July 25th, 2022 from 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. I will bring up where it is in the sub. I'll send an email. I'll put a note for myself right now. Just let me try and let me know. What's the date today? Today is the 11th. I'll probably make the order for food and drinks on, it's only the 11th. Can I get numbers on when people can come by the 20th? Is that okay? Like, if you can come, I'll put it in an email. Let me know by the 20th, and then we can figure it out, just so I know how much coffee and food I have to get for folks. And then also I feel like that'll be good because I know that 2 committee members aren't here today as well. So seeing if they would want to come as well. But once again, it would be super great if folks come out to that. Let me know if you have any questions, please email me. On to 16.2, there is a rally coming up. So Bands Off Our Body Solidarity Rally, that is on Wednesday, July 12th tomorrow from, oh, that is the wrong time. It is from that. Okay, so on the agenda, it's wrong. So it says at 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. That is actually the when the poster making is. The actual rally is on July 13th. I'm just gonna put that in the chat right now so it's on record. So July 12th is poster making for the rally. Poster making for the rally, and it is at 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Sorry, that was my fault because I submitted it wrong. And then the actual rally is, go ahead, Nebula, I see you listed.
Yeah, I will be there. I'll be at both the poster making and at the rally. We are probably going to have speeches at the end instead of the beginning. So we're gonna do the march first. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. And there's also an accessible route. So there's gonna be one route that marches all the way through kind of the main Convocation Mall and all that. And then there's also a parallel route that is like a little bit slower and flatter. That's wheelchair accessible. That will probably take about the same amount of time so that the two can end at the same place and time. And all of the routes should be posted on the social media posts, so you can see the map of where everybody's going.
Perfect, thank you.
I hope to see you there.
Thank you so much, Nebula. Thank you for adding on, because I honestly didn't know that. That sounds wonderful. So if folks can show up tomorrow, poster making from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. in the sub 2220, and then the actual rally July 13th, 2022 from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. I know I'm going to be there too. I'm pretty sure the VP Equity is going to be there. Just standing in solidarity with folks. Any questions? Well, I'm assuming not because announcements, but oh, sorry, I'm just going to add an announcement here. Just on July 25th, 2022 from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. is our next ECAC meeting. So you'll get an email for that, and then you'll get request for items. Yeah, I guess, so that concludes our announcements. On to section 18, adjournment. Be it resolved to adjourn the meeting at, oh, sorry, can I get a mover, please?
History.
History moves. Can I get a seconder?
Indigenous Studies.
Indigenous Studies seconds. Okay, now I will read out. Be it resolved to adjourn the meeting at at 6:32 p.m. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Perfect. Everyone rose their hand. Thank you. You may now lower your hands. Yeah, thank you. That's it. So that's carried. Thank you, folks. I'm going to stop the recording.